All right, guys. So far we understand the Spring or Spring Boot has a Spring container, what we call a Spring IOC container. And inside that IOC container, the Spring Boot manages all the application objects which are marked as 8 component. So all the 8 component marked class objects Spring Boot creates and put it inside this container. And all these objects is something what we call Spring Bean. Okay. But these objects that Spring container manages might have some properties or some field or some variables, whatever you are saying. Now we need to instantiate or we need to inject the values for those variables somehow. You can do that with programmatically, we know that. But there might be some chances where you want to inject the value to those properties by using some external property file or some property sources, right? So in this video, we'll be learning how to inject values to those properties by using an external property files. That's what we call property source, okay? So we'll be learning about like how to inject value to those properties by using, let's say, a property file, using your command line argument, using your VM arguments, using your environment variables. Maybe you want to load the values to those properties from another project property source. There are a lot of ways you can inject value to those properties. And we're going to be exploring every bit of this in this particular video. And also learn a little bit of Bean Scope like singleton and prototype and how those things works along with the lazy annotation in this particular video as well. All right, so let's just get started with this video right now and let's set up our project. Okay, so now let's just set off our Spring Boot project that we will be using for our learning today. Well, I do not want you to go to the Spring Initializer website, and I do not want you to download a Spring Boot project. In case you know Spring Boot, you must be knowing about Spring Initializer website. If you are a fresher or beginner, don't do that. Okay, follow this approach. Learn to create Java projects by yourself only. And here we'll be using Maven to create our project. But in case you want to download it from Spring Initializer, feel free to do that. But I'm going to be sticking into this approach. I'll tell you why. Okay, so create a normal Maven project like this. Create a Maven project. Hit on next. Choose the artifact. And artifact I'm going to be choosing as Maven archetype, maybe quick start archetype. I'll change it to internal and I'll go with the archetype quick start. Click on next, fill in your project. Maybe I can give the group ID com.seleniumexpress.propertysource. The artifact will be the project name and the project name will be propertysource, something like this. All right, and do a finish. Okay, and let Maven create your project. And once it is done, it's going to ask you to confirm it. Hit on Y over here and do a enter. Okay, now the build is success. That's your project. The only dependency that I want you to add over here is going to be the Spring context dependency in order to bring in the Spring container, right? So here, first of all, in the dependency, if you would like, you can remove this JUnit dependency. It's not needed. And here on the dependencies, I want you to add the Spring context dependency only, which will help us to bring in the Spring container. So I'll go to web and I'll go to Maven repository. And I'll click on the first link. I'll go over here and look for Spring context. Click on this. Choose the latest version, which will be 6.1.12. Click on that and click on this dependency. Go back to your IDE and paste your dependency over here. And if you're using Spring 6, make sure that the JDK that you are using should be Java 17 or plus. Now here it is Java 1.8. Now make sure to change the Java compiler version to Java 17 or plus. So here I can change the compiler version using this properties tag. So I'll go to web again. So to do that, search for Maven Java 8 compiler and go to the first link, copy this couple of things from the properties, go back to your project, paste it, and change the compiler version to Java 17 or 19 or 21, whatever you are having that in your system right now. Once that is done, do a refresh, Maven update project, force update, do OK, and you are good to go. Once the update is complete, you can see the Java version is right now changed to 17, and you're good to practice everything that you have in your Spring core. I think almost everything could be done with this dependency. This dependency will bring in all the Spring core and the Spring context and all the related dependency that we need over here, like Spring Bean, Spring AOP, blah, blah, blah. Okay. So now the next thing that we're going to be doing right here, first of all, let's just go ahead and create a new class. And let's just name this class as person. And inside this person class, let's say I want to have, first of all, let me just minimize this and minimize this. And inside this person class, let me have a couple of things. Let me have a variable called private string name of the person. So private string name and private string role. Okay, let's say I have a couple of variables here, name, let's say Avilas, role, let's say developer or engineer or something like that. Okay, so I have a couple of variables which is going to carry the properties of a person. And the next thing that I'm going to be having here, let's just have a simple method called public void print person info. Okay, let's say I have this, and I will just print out the information that I have over here. I'll just say sys out, and I'll say name, and the name of the person will come from the variable name, and also I'll have a role. So I'll just drag it to here, and I'm going to say role, and I will just concatenate the role, right? So role here. Perfect. So I have a class with a method called print person info, which is going to help me to print this couple of things here. So the next thing is that I want this class to be managed by Spring. So I will have this marker or a stereotype annotation called component, which is going to help me to create the object of the person. And also, as I said, this is a marker, and this is going to help you to create the object. So you need to scan for these components to create the objects. So I'll create another class called app configuration. So I'll say app config, and inside this app config class, let me just zoom this out a little bit. And inside this class, I'm going to having an annotation called configuration, just to make sure that all the developer who is reading this, they understand this is a configuration file where we are keeping all our application configuration. And using this config file, our container will be created. And before we go for the the container lifecycle and everything, make sure that you understand all this little thing, so that time, maybe tomorrow, whenever we'll be discussing more about the Bean lifecycle, the container lifecycle, what are the things happening in the background, things will be easy. So make sure that you are giving all your attention here. Okay, so I just created a config class where I'll be putting my system configuration or my application configuration. I have this marker called configuration, so that somebody who is looking into this file, they will say, okay, this is a configuration file. And then I'll have a component scan, and this component scan will make sure that we'll be scanning all the components where this app config file is. Right now, the app config file is inside this particular package. So obviously all the files, all the classes that I have over here will be scanned, and also our person class also will be scanned as well. Okay, so this object also will be created. So so everything fine. So now let's just create a container out of this configuration that we have created. So we'll be creating our container out of this configuration. So I'll go ahead and go to my app.java, and inside my app.java right now, I'll be creating my container. So how I'll be creating my container? You guys know, application context I'll be using, and this is going to be my container, and is equal to new application annotation config application context. And obviously I am using a configuration file which is annotation based, and I'll be using this file to create my container. So I'll copy the name of this, I'll go to app.java, I'll put the file name over here, and I'll just do .class, the class name over here. So once my container is created, let me just drag it a little bit to here. Once I create my container, now what I want to do, I'll just call that I'll invoke that method. So I'll say container dot, what is that? Print something, right? What is that? Print person info or something? Print person info. Oh, okay. I cannot do it directly, right? How can I just ask my container to print the person info? I need to perform the print person info over a object of person. So I'll ask my container first, just get me the bean of the bean. And can somebody tell me what is the bean name over here? What will be the person, right? Person in small letter. I'll copy that. I'll go over here and I'll paste it. Person, I'll make the p small. Just whatever the class name, make this thing small if somebody didn't catch that up. And I'll say person dot class. And here I'll be getting my person bean. I'll just do control-1, assign statement to a new local variable, and I'll just get this object and I'll say person dot print. So person dot print person info. And obviously, as you expect, this is not going to get me any value. So in my console, you can see it is null and null. Is this text visible, guys? You are able to see this? I'm using a different monitor. Yeah, just tell me, guys, if you are not able to see something, because I'm using a larger monitor today. Okay, so it's like null and null. So right now what I want, these values I want to inject to the, everyone please be on mute. Yeah, so what I want to do, I want to inject the value of name and role that I have inside the person class. But the way I want to inject the value to this variable, the name and the role, let's say I want to inject a value called Avilas, role called developer. The way I can do it, I will just use a property file right now. So there's something what we call a property source. So I will just basically, I'll be feeding the value, right? I'll be feeding the value for this variable. So I should be getting those values from somewhere, right? So that's what, I'll be getting those sources from a property file. So I will go here to the source main Java. I will just click on new. I'll click on other and I'll create a file. And this file is going to be my property file. And my property file name is going to be, let's say, app.properties. So you have to go with an extension called properties, where your properties file will have this extension. Click on this source. And this property file is like a hash map. It's like having a key value pair here. Like I can say key is name, value is Avilash. Then let's say role is the key, value is, let's say, developer, something like that. So I have a couple of things for my name and role. So what I'm going to do right now, I will make sure, like, I will load the data from this property file. Okay, like the name I will load, which is Avilas, the role I'll load, which is developer, and I want to feed those things to this person class, these variables. And obviously that will not happen automatically unless it is a Spring Boot application. And right now we are learning everything by ourselves. To learn how Spring Boot does these things automatically, we need to learn how to configure it by ourselves. So obviously if I'll run this, it is still saying null and null. It's not injecting the value. So how to inject the value? Anyone remember an annotation from the Spring Core sessions on YouTube? Anyone? @value. So let's go with @value. And then inside this @value, keep it above your property name, give a double quote, give open and close curly brace, give a $sign, and then put your key here. And if you're going to see your app.properties, this is the key, this is the value, this is the key, this is the value. So let's take the key, copy, and go to the person, put the key over here. Okay, and I'll copy this, Control C, paste the value here. Paste the value annotation here. And now I'll be loading the properties from a property file, and whatever the key that I have defined for name, that will be injected to this. Like that, whatever the value for role that I'll be loading from the property file and will be injecting to this. So I'll go to app, I'll just go to my app.java. Let's run this application one more time. And still I'm not getting the value. I'm just getting the value that I'm writing there, name and role. So it is taking that as a string. The things that I've defined here, it is taking that as a string. Like whatever I'm giving here, it is taking that. Let's say I'm just writing here blah 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 blah. Control S. If I run this, it is taking that value directly. But I don't want to print this value, right? I want to get these values dynamically from the properties file. So how can I do that? If I want to get these values dynamically from the property file, then I need to load that property file would exist inside my class path. Right now, app.properties file, where I have it inside the source main Java. So it's inside my class path of this particular project, right? So I need to load this properties file, and I need to tell my container that, hey container, make sure whenever you are starting, you load this file called app.properties. And obviously everything we're defining where? Inside our configuration class. So inside our configuration class, because my container will be created out of this configuration class. So whenever my container will start, I'll say, hey container, make sure I have a property source, or I have a property file inside my class path. Okay, so you need to load that as well. So how can I do that? I will just say, so you can see I can give value here, and I can just give a string here, and I can say the property source will be loaded from this directory. And right now the properties file is where? Inside a property file name is what? app.properties. Let me copy that, paste it over here. So I'm telling that, hey container, whenever you will be creating a container out of this configuration class, read these properties that I have inside the class path, right? So will that work? If I'll go to app.java, do a right click, run as Java application, it will still not work, I believe. Oh, it's working, it's taking that, okay, without the class path. Okay, so it's saying Vilas and developer, so looks like the values are getting loaded right now. So I was not expecting that, because what I was thinking, because I think, you know, the file is directly here inside the class path, so it is assuming that the file is inside the class path, the app.properties file. So inside the app config, like, you know, the best way you can do it, you can just write class path. Everyone, make sure that you are on mute. Class path like this, and just give a colon here, and make sure that you are loading the file right here. So here I'm explicitly saying the file app.properties that you have to look inside the class path. But if I'm not giving this class path, still the things are working, because the system is thinking, okay, the app.properties, I'll find that in the class path. It's going inside the source main Java folder and finding it. Okay, so things are looking good. So the next thing, I'm gonna move it to class path. I'll follow the best practice right now. Control Z. Oh, I'll just write class path colon. So I'm saying finding this properties file from the class path from the source main Java. Okay, let's go to app.java, run this. Things are working. Yes, working. All good. But what about, let's say inside the person.java, I have another variable now. Let's say private string and the organization that I work for. Let's say I'll have a add value annotation. I want to load this particular property from a variable called org, and I want to make sure I will get it dynamically. Okay, if I'll not put anything, this will be directly injected to here. But I'll say that, I'll tell Spring that, hey, it is not a string, it is a dynamic value that I'll be loading from my property source. So I'll say org right here, and I'll also print this org. Let's say I'll go over here, and I'll say plus, and I'll say org. Questions? 1 second, let me just check the chat. Suhas, I'm muting you. Okay, so yeah, things are looking good right now. Okay, I have the org, and this org I want to inject right here. Okay, all looks good. So right now, if I will go to my app.java, if I run this, do you think it will work? Obviously not. It will just get me org. Right now, this org value I want to feed right now, but in a different way. Now, this value I'll feed. Now, if I'll put this value over here, like, you know, org equal to Selenium Express, this will work, right? Selenium Express, this will work fine. Run this, and you'll say Selenium Express right here. Whenever I'm clicking this, I'm actually running my application itself, right? This app.java that I ran before. So I'm not doing right click, run a Java application. I think you guys understanding this. So I'm hitting the value, but the thing is that I will not define this org over here. I'll comment this org from here, Control S. And if I'll run this right now, this org will be null, right? The org is like, it's just getting all that string only. But let's say I want to have that org file in a separate properties file inside a different project. Let's say I'll create another Java project, and I'll say Java project next, and I'll say project name is ABC. let's say do finish, and I want to create a module. I'll just create a simple Java project here called ABC right here. Inside this project, I will be creating a properties file. Let's say I'll create a file here. Where is that file? File, and I'll say application, or let's say something my app dot properties. Okay, and let's say this properties file that I have it inside a different project. I have a different project here called ABC. I'm gonna put this I'm gonna put this org equal to, let's say, cell exp stands for Selenium Express, right? Now if I put this, so do you think if I will go to now I'll just make sure that this app.properties is inside the ABC project. The app.properties that you have, like this one, is inside your property source project, right? Now this organization, I remove it. Okay, now this app.properties is inside the property source, inside this application. Now what I want to run this application, run a Java application, and it will not get me that organization value, right? Because that organization value that I kept it inside a different project. Imagine you have a properties file and then you got the value here. Now how are you going to be loading this org value to your person class right here? And if I do link to editor, look at that, where your person class is inside the property source. Okay, inside this project, which is a different project than ABC. Now I want to load the value. So is the requirement is clear? Like what I'm trying to achieve here, I'm trying to load a property value from a different project. Is the requirement is clear, or any questions so far? Yes, please.
Yes, sure.
Yeah.
Yes.
So how can I do that? Any suggestion from your end? Hey, you must.
You need to use the property sources.
Property sources. Okay. Can I use? Okay, I'll go to app.java. So you are asking me to use the property sources. Why basically you want me to use a property sources annotation, guys? What he is saying that we have a property sources annotation, and he wants me to use that. But why? Please give me a
multiple conversations.
Multiple. Correct, Ashok. So it's like what Ashok is trying to explain, that okay, you have, like, you need to load another property file. So you need to use property sources annotation here in order to load multiple files. Can we still use property source only, Ashok? Can we still use this and put a value over here? Do you think this is going to get me a problem? Like I want to load this value, my app.properties, copy that, paste it over here. Do you think I'll get a problem if I use property source annotation twice? If I'll use, go inside this application, go inside this annotation that you are using. Look at this. You have something called @repeatable, and if you have @repeatable, then this annotation can be used for multiple times. So now if I'll come over here, that's why it's not giving any compilation error. So here I'm loading the app.properties file from the class path of the project that I'm currently in. If I'll just do link to editor, I'm here inside the properties source. This is my properties file, and another file that I'm loading is called my app.properties, and where it is, and is it inside the class path my app? No, I don't have any properties file here called my app. So obviously if I'll go to the app.java and if I'll do run this, it will not work, right? It is not, see, file not found, class path resources, my app.properties cannot be opened because it does not exist, right? Obviously this file does not exist inside the class path, my app.properties. So how to load this? It's inside a different project. So any idea, any thoughts from you guys? Ashok, you want to give any input to this? Yes, please. Any thoughts will be welcome.
Need to give full class path.
Need to give full class path, like the project path you are saying, Pankaj?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so I think that is going to work. So this is my file, right? I'll just right click, I'll click on properties, and I'll copy this path, my app.properties, copy this, and I will close this. I'll go to my main configuration, and instead of this, I'll put the entire my path users.abhilash whatever my app.properties file is my class, file name. Do Control S, run this, run. Still I'm getting this path that I have, my app.properties inside this entire path Pankaj cannot be opened because it does not exist. So any idea how can we do it? Yep.
Import the package and then do.
Exactly. So let's try that. Import the package in the sense, let's use this particular, let's just do one thing. Let's just say this URL is basically a file. Okay, I'll just write file here. Okay, and I'll say like I was writing class path, like I'm writing file, that you need to go to this file location, okay, called my app.properties. If you see my app.properties, right click, do your properties, go inside this location, you'll be finding your, where is it? I opened it in a different screen. So can I just drag it right here? If I see this, see my app.properties file is right here inside the ABC project. I have this particular file. So inside this file I have this file. Inside this folder I have this file. So you just need to get the info, and right here this is the exact path that you have to reach this file, and that's what I have given. So let me close this, let's go over there, and let's do apply and close, and let's go to app configure Java. I just used file here just to let my Spring knows that this application.properties file is exist inside a inside this particular folder. Let's do Control S. Now let's run this application. Let's see if the things works fine. And there you go. It's called Selenium Express. So right now you understand how to load a property file from a different project and how to load a property file from a different property source. Till now things are clear. Questions, please ask. Questions, Anju, Akhil, questions? I'll not be accepting any questions from Akhil.
No, we'll have no questions. I'm silent.
I will say. Anju, any questions? Anusha, any questions? Aparna?
Treating the app.properties as a file, right?
Vijay, go ahead. Yeah. Question is?
You're treating my app.properties as a
File only.
right?
Yes. Only the extension you have to just use it as a dot properties. Like you have .txt, Vijay. Like that you have dot properties. Like that. See, using the properties file, what we are doing, Vijay. For an example, I'll just ask you a question. Okay, I have a simple question. Just think and answer me. Question is, using the property file, using the property source, what I'm trying to achieve? Yes, please.
You try to get a value from a properties file.
Yeah, so I'm basically trying to fetch a value from the properties file. Let's say right now if I'll run my application is saying organization is Selenium Express. If I'm going to say organization is Selenium Express 1, 2, 3, if I run this value is changing. So what I'm trying to achieve, I'm basically trying to alter the behavior, or I'm changing the behavior of my application when I'm running this, without modifying the code, I'm just altering the behavior of my application. And that's the role of the property file. Okay. So I think so far the things are clear. Okay. I will just go back to the suggestion that Ashok has given me. I'll go to app.config class, and right now what I want to do here, when you have multiple property source over here, you can wrap this up under a single annotation like this. Add property sources. Okay, instead of source you have multiple property sources, you have multiple property files, and you can wrap this off inside this right over here, and you can just control space, and you can see the value it is taking multiple property source. Okay, multiple property source class. You can click on this, and if you're gonna go to property source class, you can see that this is the class. All your annotation is one classes only, right? This is a class. So where I can close this. Okay, 1 second please. Okay, right here. Now this value is going to take multiple property source annotation. That means, so what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna give a enter here, and this couple of annotation I will cut it like this, Control X, and I'll put it over here. Okay, like this. And this means I'm just telling that, okay, the values are this couple of property sources, and I can just give a comma here and things should work fine. Is it? So property source, okay, is it going to be an array or something? Value is missing tokens.
Should we give it in curly brackets?
Should I? Yeah, I think it's a array, right? Can I see it? Like, can I go inside this property sources? Yeah, see, the value that we are giving is an array of property source. So we need to do the same as the, like, whatever you said. So right now I just want to make it an array, and I'll end this right over here. After this, I'll end it over here. Okay, is this gone? Like, the compilation thing is gone. Like, this value is going to be an array. This is my first thing, and then this is my second thing, and here I'm wrapping it up.
It should be curly bracket, no?
Oh, sorry. Yes. I'm sorry. One second. Curly brace and curly brace here. Control S. Is it going to work? Yes, working. Let me format this. Control Shift F. Okay, looks good. Maybe I can just bring this property source to down, and things are good. Okay, so this is just an array. Okay, so curly brace we have to take, and these are like my object number 1. This is my object number 2, and this value is taking multiple number of property source. If you're using property sources, it's just going to help us to bundle this. Okay, perfect. So all good. So we are all good with this. So we understood this annotation. Now what we understood, that the property files, we are loading it from our own project class path, and also we are loading it from a different project like ABC that we have created. Now I have another question. If I remember it correctly, I think Hemant was asking me this question like a few days back. Hemant is there on the call. Hemant, are you in the call? Hemant. Yes, Hemant, you are there.
Yes.
Hemant, this is your question, right? I think you raised it. You raised it like a couple of days before. Now the question is, guys, let's say you have a property here. Now imagine inside the person.java. Okay, I'll go inside this, and imagine you have another variable. The variable is private. Let's say string. Let's say something else. Let's say experience, exp. Okay, and this experience value I want to feed in, so I'll just use the add value. Control C this, Control C, and paste it over here, and I'm gonna say exp. Control C it, Control V it over here. Okay, now I want to feed this exp value by fetching the exp from the properties file, and I want to log it over here plus, let's say exp, exp, and I'm going to give a space, and here I'm going to give a colon, and I'll just concatenate the exp. Okay, perfect. Now the thing is, you want to load the exp, but from where do you want to load? You don't want to load it from a external properties file like this. Let's say you have different types of variables like VM arguments, system properties. Let's say if you're going to go over here, and I'll open up my terminal, and I'm going to say set. Okay, then look at that. These all are my properties that I have in my the system properties that I have. This is automatic. Like, a lot of things has been set. You're going to be finding your map and home, Java home over here. You'll be finding your username. See, username is Avilas Panigrahi. User is Avilas Panigrahi. Username is this. You're going to be finding your M2 home. See, there are a lot of paths set for different things. It's all key value pair, right? F path is the key. This is the value. Let's say user is the key, or something is the value. If you're going to do Control F, I'm going to look for M2, let's say Java home. Can I look for Java home? Java home is a system property. Look at that. Here is my Java home. I is pointing to JDK 19. So all these things are my system properties. Let's say if I want to load my system properties, can I do it with the add value annotation? The answer is yes. And one more thing is that, let's say this exp variable that you have, somebody tells you like, do one thing, no need to inject the value from a property file, but make sure this add value annotation whenever you are whenever you are basically injecting this exp, let the developer or let somebody give the option whenever they are running the application, they need to inject the value of exp. For an example, I am running this app.java, right? Right click, let's say I'm running it. So I'm going to run like this, right click, run as Java application. So whenever I'm running this exp value I need to inject. Okay, I don't want to define inside the properties file over here. Okay, I don't want to define that experience over here. If I define the experience here, it will work. But I don't want to do that. I want to set that whenever I'm running the thing. So how can I do that? Anyone? Like how can I set this? Anybody know? Like whenever I'm running this application, let's say I'm running this. During the time I run this application as a Java application, I will make sure this exp value will be injecting when I'm running my program. Whenever I'm running my program, I want to inject this exp. Any idea how I'll be doing it? I want to hear it from you. Yes, anybody? Hemant?
Using environment variable and second option passing VM arguments.
VM arguments, exactly. So I'll go to app.java, to right click and do run edge, go to run configuration, and you can see here you can just set different things. It's like arguments. You can see there is an option here called virtual machine arguments or something called VM arguments. So you can just give your property over here like this. Start with the D, dash D, capital D, and whatever your key is, the key is exp, give a equals and give a value. How can you give a value? Just give a value like, let's say, okay, I'm going to say 7 years for an example. Okay, and I'm going to say apply and run, and look at that, it's just saying me 7 years. So I'm altering the behavior whenever I'm running the application. I'll do run as run configuration and go ahead to the arguments, change the 7 years to let's say 1 year, and it will work fine. And this is what you call okay, I think there is some class not found exception, maybe some issues that I have made. Run configuration and go to arguments, and 1 year, it should not be any space, I believe. Run, yeah, there you go, 1 year. Okay, so this is how I'm just giving the value. So basically guys, you can do like this whenever you are running your application in your in your own Eclipse or IntelliJ IDE, or people will tell you to do this also, like in real time. Sometime what you're gonna have, like you're gonna do maven install, you will be creating the jar for this. See, if I do maven install, the jar will be created. Here is the jar for Spring app, whatever. I think Propertysource name has not been changed because I copied the project from here. So the Propertysource, like this particular project name, has not been modified in my pom.xml. But if I'll go to the target, where is my target? I'll go to the target, I'll go inside this, I have this guy, this is my jar, and in real time what will happen, you will be running this jar. I'll refresh it once, you'll be running this jar. So how I'll be running it? So can I go to this particular project called Propertysource, right click, I'll go to properties, open this folder, and I will drag this in. This is in my other monitor. I'm gonna just drag this in, and right here, go inside this. This is your target folder. This is where you have your jar that you want to run. So I'll open the terminal here in the target. I'll just do find new terminal, and inside the terminal, I'll just do command ++++, and just to increase the size, and then you can run this. How can you run? The jar file? You can just do java -jar, then your file name. And what is your file name? Your file name is jar file name is this. So copy this, go here and paste it. You don't have to give the entire path. Rather, one second. Rather, you can just give this much, your jar name only for Spring app, whatever, that is your jar file name. And you can run your jar like this. And I think this will not work. This jar I'll not be able to run. If I'll do enter, see, it is saying no many first attribute in this. So it is saying that no main. So I have not set the, I'm not able to run this is the way to run a jar. So this is how you will be running the jar from the command prompt. The way you can do, right click Java application right here, you are doing right click run as Java application. This is how you're running from your IDE, right? The same way you can run from the command prompt by using this command called java-jar, then your jar file name. But why this jar is not running and giving you the output that you're looking into the console here is because the main class, this is where I'm directly running the main class like this. Right click, run as Java application. Okay, so it is running. But here I just did what? I just bundled all these classes, all this properties file, and wrapped it off under a jar, and I exported it and trying to run that, but this jar over here, and I'm expecting that whatever the code that I have written, I will be getting that in my console. And I'm not getting this because this is the main class. I have not specified it whenever I just created this jar. So I can do that by setting some configuration, the main class. There is a tag here called main class. I can just use that and I can set my app as my main class and can run this, but I'll do that later. But just remember, whenever you are running this jar, okay, whenever you have to give any external property, just give it like this, /d, the way I have done it. And let's say whenever I'm running this jar, there is some external VM arguments that I can pass. Just use /-d here and just go to your person, and your key is experience. Copy this and go over here, paste it. This is your key, and just give the value like experience is 9 years. Okay, and this should work fine. So as I am not able to run this jar because I have not set the main class, which is app here, obviously this will not work, and I'll get the same error over here, no main manifest. So I need to create this file, and there will be some alter I need to do, but this is how you have to pass the VM properties if you are running the jar using your Maven command prompt. Okay, right here. Otherwise, if you are running directly from your ID, you know where to set it. As I said, you can just go over here, do run as, and go to run configuration, click on arguments. These are the virtual machine argument for your Java. We'll load this, and from here you can set the configuration by giving a -d exp. You can also do that in the environment section. Right here, go to the environment tab, click on add, and give exp here, which is your property name, and just give a variable like, let's say ha. Okay, do okay, apply, run. Let's say I don't have any experience, and okay, I already ran this. Sorry, I click on run, right? So it's just giving you ha. Okay, so I'm just controlling the variable right now from the VM arguments, and also the property I told you, from the environment section. So I think that this thing is clear. Any questions so far? Guys, I want to hear out from you. Like, everything clear so far? Like, whatever we have discussed, this much is clear? Yes, please? Yeah, okay.
Yes.
Yeah, Lipika, all good, right? Like, no confusion so far?
All good, sir.
Okay.
All good. Yeah.
Omkar, questions? Repti, questions? Richard, any questions? Sekhar, questions? Sekhar, you tell me if you have any questions.
No, sir.
Okay.
No, sir.
Okay, my main priority is you. let me tell you that people who are having below 2 years of experience, keep on raise a red flag every time you feel like I'm rushing. Let me tell you that this is all for you. Like, you need to get it, like, who never saw this thing. And people who already experienced this thing, please hold on a little bit for maybe a couple of weeks. Once we all are in the same page, we're going to be split this up. We're going to be adding some more experienced people, and we're going to be splitting this up. Okay, I guess environment variable has more precedence over, yes, exactly, Akhil. That thing will go into that in a little later. But this thing, you guys can do experiment. What Akhil is trying to say, let's say, if I'll go to app.java, and right now I'm going to be running this application, run as, run configuration. And over here also in the environment also I'm specifying the exp as ha. And in the VM arguments also I'm specifying the same property. Let's say -d experience, and I'm going to say 7 years. So which is going to have more priority? And do you think 7 years is right now is going to be injected to the experience string, or this is something which is going to be injected?
The VM.
The VM, let's see, run, and it is the VM. So the VM has the more priority than the environment if you have the same thing in the couple of places. So yeah, so this is something that you have learned everything, like how to load it from the virtual machine arguments, the environment variable, from a different project, and from the class path, how to load the properties file. You all are good. One last thing, as I said, yeah, yes,
Sorry to interrupt.
yeah, Aditi, yeah, tell me.
What is the difference between VM arguments and program arguments? One more thing.
You are talking about the things that I have overhead, like if I'm running this.
Run config.
Exactly. Coming into this, Aditi, 1 second. So you're talking about this section, right? Program arguments. I'll be coming into this section. Yeah, just give me some time.
Okay.
Yeah, one last thing. I will also tell you that. Then I'll come back to this. I'll do close all. And let's say I have the %.java. And now I want to basically load properties. Let's say I want to load my username or my, let's say, private string, let's say user. And I want to load my user from a system property. Okay. Let's say I told you, if you're going to come over here and going to do set, these are all your system properties that you have set. So your Java home, M2 home, your username, password, everything is there. Let me look for a property is called Control F user. Let's say user. Let's say this is my home, right? This is my user home. Let me just go for this home. Let me just load this. So I will go for my home URL, and I want to load this by using add value. But this add value, I don't want to feed it from the VM arguments or from the environment variable or from any property source. I want to load this from a system properties. Okay, so I'll directly go to my system properties, and these are the things that your operating system uses. And I'm going to be copying this key, and this key has this value called /user Avilas Panigrahi, and I will come to here and paste it here. Okay, so do you think this is going to work? Let's see that. Let's say home here, and I want to concatenate this one as well. Okay, dash and home colon Control S. So run this, and there you go. The home URL is user/Avilas Panigray. Okay, so this is how the thing should work. Perfect. So far things are good.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so we have 10 more minutes left. Guys, I'm running a timer right now. I just promised myself that the video should not be go 1 hour or more. So yeah. Okay, I think this thing is done. I'll come back to a couple more things in the value. One last thing, let me just close everything. This is all about the values. Just remember that your container is loading up the resources file, and this is something which is going to be very important to build your foundation whenever you'll be thinking about the container and what are the job that the container does. Think like, in the real time, if you're having any issues and you're trying to fix it out, it's very important to understand like how the container works in real time. There are a lot of things that I'm going to tell you maybe tomorrow and day after tomorrow, which you'll not be using pretty much. Let's say if I'll tell you 100% of thing, maybe 30% of things you'll not be using in your real-time projects, but still having that understanding will help you to figure out issues and bugs pretty confidently. So we're going to be also spending some more time to understand how our container is actually functions. But before that, I just want to, maybe I have 10 more minutes. I'll just quickly ask you a couple more questions, and I'll just continue from the next class. I'll just create another project here. Okay, and I'm gonna call this project as scope. Okay, and right now inside the scope project, I'll go to the source main Java. I'll just check your understanding, and I have I have the app.java. Let me just remove everything from here. Okay, I just have my container here. That's it. I'll just Control S it. I have the app config here. In the app config, I don't have any property source and all these things. Let me remove this. because I don't want to discuss about this thing. And I have a person, and I will just remove everything that I have over here, the values annotation, because I think you guys are good with this right now, and I'll remove all this thing. Okay, and imagine I will just have the person info, and I'm just printing the role and this. That's it. That's a very simple application that I have, right? And I think you guys are good with this, and I'm printing the role here. Okay, that's it. No properties files are needed. I'm going to delete and do OK. Do a Control-Shift-O to fix all this. I'll just remove this value annotation. I'll hit Control-Shift-O. Okay, things are good. So I have one class called person. This is a bean. I'll go to my app.java. Here I'm creating my container for the app config class, and also my person bean will be created. So in my container, if I do get bean of person, and I want to get the person bean, so person.class, and let's say I'm just getting the bean over here of the person. So bean means object. I'm asking my container to get me the object of the person. I'm gonna saying here person1. Okay, so my question is, let's say if I'll do sysout here of person1, then this is going to be the person object that I'm going to get from my container. And obviously this is going to be the hexadecimal representation of the hash code. And obviously this is the hexadecimal representation of the hash code that I have. And this is my hash code value, person@697 something, 51B is something that I have over here. So my question, which I want you to understand, I think if you have gone through the Spring Core tutorials, you might have found this, but I just want to make sure that everyone is in the same page. So if I'm going to do again container.getBean, if I'm going to ask again my container that get me the person bean again, okay, and if I'm going to do print out the same thing again right here, okay, copy this, paste it over here. Now my question is, the person1 bean that my container gave, here my container, I'm asking to my container that container, can you get me a person object? Container say, okay, this is the person object, take it, do any business operation, call any methods that you want. Okay, I'm logging it over here. I'm not doing any business operation. I'm just fetching the object and just finding it hash code. And here also I'm asking the container just get me the object. Container is saying, okay, this is the another person object that you have, and I'm just logging it over here. My question is, if this is the same object that my container is returning to me, or is a different object? It will be same, Manish. Okay, same. And if you are saying same, why do you saying same? If you're saying different, then why do you saying different?
They're referring to the same
member. Let me run this. Let me just run this. Okay, and there you go. You're gonna see the hash code, right? Is 51B 51B. So this is the same object that we are getting from our container, isn't it? So as many times you're gonna ask your container that get me the bean, it's gonna get you the same bean. So if you're gonna say person again, and if you're gonna say person3, and if you're gonna printing the reference of person3, again you're gonna be getting the same reference right here. So run this and see all these three things. These are the same reference. So I'm gonna be doing what? Let me just have a if clause here, and I'm gonna say if person1 is equal to person2, then it's a same bean. So sysout, let's say objects are same, okay, else let's say object are not same, else object are sysout, okay, object are not same. Okay, now Control S, right click, run as Java application. Now what we are getting, object are same. And obviously this is one concept. I got something on the chart, they're saying, okay, singleton object, correct. So going into that, just want to tell you about one thing. Just if I can maybe draw a diagram, is a very important concept to understand. Let me see if I can draw something here. Guys, two things, just look at over here. Look at this. Like whenever you have, you have a Spring container, right? Imagine this is your Spring IOC container. I'm not able to draw properly, but I think you can understand. This is your IOC container, right? This IOC container you are creating out of what? That is a configuration file. That is a file here. and this is your config file. This is your config file. This config file is doing what? There are many classes like this. There are many classes. These classes are maintained with add component annotation. This config file is reading all these classes, right? Like this. It is reading all these classes. And out of this container, if your classes is marked as add component, the beans are getting created like this. Okay. And whenever you are doing a get bean method, what will happen? Let's say get bean of, let's say this is X object, this is Y object, this is Z object, this is some other object. Whenever you are saying get bean of X, every time your container will get you this object only. And this is the only time your object will be created. And this is what we called a scope, a bean scope. Okay, this is what we called a bean scope. And the default scope of the bean is singleton. And that's what Manish was saying. So default scope, if you do not mention any scope right now, I didn't even teach you about scope, but still you are seeing that whenever you're doing get bean of X, get bean of X, get bean of X, you're going to be getting the exact same object over here. And this is one single object. But now let's say this is your X class, this is your Y class, this is your Z class. Out of your X class, your configuration is reading your X class and creating the X class object here. But imagine if I'll create another container, okay, this container is also been created by reading this configuration file. Okay, then what will happen? If this container this is another IOC container, let's say this is IOC container 1, this is IOC container 2, another IOC container I'm creating by reading the same configuration file. Then what will happen? Then again this file will be having X class reference and it will be scanning that. Then again the X class object will be created. See, it is singleton, but singleton for container based. Like for one container, there will be only one object of X. Like again, this IOC2 we are creating by reading this configuration file. So again, this X will be coming here, right? So again, Y will be created over here. So even though they are singleton, their scope is restricted to the container only. So now if you're going to see the same concept, if you're going to apply here, if I'm going to go to my here, and if I'm going to create another application context, Control C and paste it here, and I'm going to say container 2 I'm creating, reading the same configuration file, and the app config file, as you know, it does the component scan and it is going to read out all the classes having the component annotation, and again this has the component annotation. So there will be another person object will be created under this container 2. So this container is carrying a person object because this has been created out of this configuration file, and out of this configuration file another container we are creating. So inside this also we should have a person object. So now if you're gonna do container dot get bean and of I can copy this, Control C, and I'm going to ask the same bean but to a different container. So here the object will not be same. Okay, so when you say singleton scoped, remember like what it actually means. So if you're gonna say person, let's say person 3, okay, now if I'm gonna run this Java application,
But it's a container 2.
oh sorry, container 2, and also I have not printed it. Can I copy this out? Control C and paste it over here, and I'm gonna copy this person 3. Okay, I'm asking my container 2 get me the person bean. Now if I'm gonna run this, run as Java application, look at that. Now look at this hash code, it's ending with 772E, and look at this, is 6973V515. So these are, now if you're gonna ask the container 2 the same thing again and again, then it is going to give you the same bean. Okay, again you want to say person 4 and ask the container 2 that get me the person bean again, and if you're going to print it, then it is going to get you the same thing. So right click, run as Java application. As many time you're going to ask the same container that get me the bean, it is going to get you the same bean. So this is what you mean by the singleton scope. So the person bean is right now is having a scope. The scope is singleton. So right now I have not defined any scope, still it is singleton, but to define the singleton scope you can just use the scope annotation and you can just write singleton here. Do Control S and run this. Okay, and you can see the objects here and the objects here are different. Okay, so these objects are same for the first container, these objects are same for the first container, but for the second container, but if you compare the objects container wise, they will be different object. So singleton scope spring beans mean per container there will be one bean, and as many time you're gonna do get bean operation, you're gonna be getting the same bean over here. But the time if you're gonna ask another container for bean, for an example, same if clause, if you're gonna run it here for person 1 and person 4, this will not match. Control S, right click, because person 1 is coming from a different container and person 4 is coming from different container. You can see here the object are not same, because person 1, click on this, where we are getting this from this container, from the container 1, and person 4 from where we are getting it from this container. Okay, so obviously the object are not same. Okay, this is what we called a singleton scope. I just want to ask one last question, then I'll wrap it. Guys, tell me, whenever you are scanning, whenever your container is getting created out of this app config file, it is scanning few of the beans like person here. Okay, this person bean is it is instantly this bean is instantly getting created, or like when the container is created the bean is created, or when the container is created later the bean is getting created. When I load the container, let's say if I'll go to app.java and let me comment out all this thing for now, I'll not delete it because I'll give you the code. So when I'm creating the container, the beans are getting created, or when I'm calling the get bean method, then only the beans are getting created?
Get bean.
So right now the beans are not going to be created. Let's see. I'll go to the person.java. Here I'll just
I
do
think
will get, let's see, I'll have a default constructor. Let's say spring will create the object, right? So spring will be obviously using our constructor like person is equal to new person, it will be doing, let's say. So let's say it's person, and I'm going to say sysout inside the person constructor. Okay, Control S. If I'll go to app.java, do right click, run a Java application, see inside the person constructor. So whenever your container object you are creating out of this, the bean is instantly getting created. Okay, the person bean is instantly getting created. So this is what you call a eager initialization, and like that you have also a lazy initialization. Let's say if you're gonna say at lazy here, then the person bean will not be created instantly, right? Now if you're gonna say lazy, and if you're gonna go to app.java, do a right click, run as Java application. Look at that, whether your constructor got called, nothing inside the terminal. So your bean is not getting created. But the moment I'm gonna say, let's say container.getBean, okay, and I'm gonna say person, and I'm gonna get the person object, person.class, and now let's see what is going to happen. Run as Java application. I'm asking for the bean. Now it is just creating that bean and getting me the instance. And this is what we called, you are lazily initializing the person. All right, guys. So before we proceed ahead and before we wrap up this session, I have one last scenario to show you. And this is going to help you to understand the bean lifecycle better. That's something that we're going to be talking in our next sessions. See, here we are loading the container. And what I told you, that whenever you load the container, your components, all of your components will be straight away instantiated and will be leaving inside the container. But let's say if we have this person.java, which is marked as a component, the scope is also singleton. That means when the container will be created, this bean also will be instantiated. Just like person is equal to new person, and this line will be there in your console. But if you are marking it lazy, that means you do not want this bean to be instantiated during the time of container initialization, right? Rather, what do you want? Basically, if you're going to run this application like this, you will see there won't be any lines printing on the console. Okay, that means a person bean is not yet instantiated. If it would have been instantiated, we might have got the constructor called, and this line might be in our console. So if I'm going to comment this out, run this, do OK, I should be able to see inside the constructor on the console because it's not lazy. But people ask this question, once you mark it lazy, okay, then if you're going to run this application, okay, now when the container is getting loaded over here, the bean is not getting created. But when you are asking for the container, asking for the bean, like container dot get bean, and let's say we're asking for the person bean, like this, person dot class, okay, and that time what will happen? The bean will be created because we are asking for that bean. So Spring understand that, okay, now I need to instantiate this bean, put it inside the container called person bean that will be there in the container. And every time we'll be asking for the person bean, the same bean will be given back to us. So if I'm going to do a control 1, assign the statement to a local variable. If I have this person, let's say if it is person 1, and if I want to print this person as out, let's say person 1, okay, and another time if I'm going to ask the same bean to the container, make sure I'm going to get the same bean over here. Let's say person 2, okay, even though it is lazy will not change the scope. Lazy means it will be, the person bean will be instantiated later, right? But once it's instantiated, you're going to be seeing the scope. The scope is singleton right now. So every time you're going to be asking the person bean to the container. Right here we're asking, right here we're asking again the person bean, and we're getting a person bean back. And every time I'm going to do that, we're going to be getting the same bean object over here. You can see the hexadecimal representation of the hash code is same for every bean that we're getting out of the container. Now here one more concept just you have to understand. See, if you're going to change this person bean scope to prototype, then what will happen? Okay, if it is prototype scoped, that means every time you're going to ask the bean to the container, okay, hey container, I want the person bean, but this person bean right now the scope is marked as prototype. The default scope of the bean is singleton, okay, but I'm changing the scope here to prototype. If I do so, that means the container will give me a bean every time by constructing it. So every time I'm going to be asking for a bean, I'm going to be getting a new object or a new bean back. Here I'm asking for the person bean, I'm going to get a new person object back. Here I'm going to ask for the person bean, I'm going to get a new person bean back, new person object back. Again, I'm going to ask for a person bean, I'm going to get a new person object back. So this is the not the same bean which is getting returned to me. Every time I'm going to be asking for it, you can see like I'll have 3 different person object and will be having 3 times the person constructor will be get called, because every time I'm going to be asking for the person bean, this constructor will be invoked and a new person object will be given back to me. So if you're going to see this, previously we used to have one constructor call while we are asking for the bean twice. I think this line was there before, this line was there before. So couple of time we are printing the person object, which was the same object, and only one time the constructor object is getting instantiated, and that is living inside the container, and that is the object which is getting back to us every time we're asking for that. So only one time the object was getting constructed. But right now, as we have changed the scope to prototype, look at that, what is going to happen. See, every time we're going to do get bean, okay, the constructor is getting invoked. That's why we're getting inside the person constructor, and then we're getting a new person object and printing it over here. Okay, right over here. Then again we're asking for the person bean. Again the constructor is getting invoked because a new object is getting created and given us back by the container. And then we're printing the person object. Look at the hash code. Okay, it is also different. Third time we're asking it. Third time the person object is getting invoked first and got created. And when we're printing it, you can see the object hash code, it is different. And one more thing that you have to understand here, if I go to the person.java right now, I'll remove this lazy mark. It's not necessary right now. You will see what is going to happen right now. First of all, I'm changing the scope to prototype. Okay. If I'll go to app.java, if I comment out all this, things over here. I'm just bootstrapping my container. So do you think right now this constructor will be called whenever my container will be bootstrapping? I'm not marking the person bean as lazy. If it is singleton means what will happen? Obviously, when the container will be created, the person bean will be created and will live inside the container. That's the default behavior of the singleton, and it is eager initialization of the bean it does. But right now, once I mark it to prototype, let's just see what is going to happen, right? Let's just go to app.java. Let's just run this and look at that. We do not have the person bean got created. When it will be created? Whenever we're going to be asking for that bean. Okay. Now here I'm asking for that bean. So if I'm going to run this, you can see inside the person constructor right now, a person constructor got invoked, a person bean got created and given us back instantly. That means the prototype scoped bean are by default lazy. Okay, that do not get created when the containers get created. Okay, and now if I'll go back, every time you are asking a bean to the container, like get me the person bean, again it will be created. Again a new object will be created. Again you are asking to the container, okay, a new bean will be created like this. Okay, so you can see 3 times the constructor is getting called. Just understand this much, that whenever you're creating a container, if the beans are marked as prototype, then nothing will be created inside this container. Okay, and whenever you're going to ask the bean to the container that, okay, get me this bean, if that bean is marked as prototype, the container will get you a new object of the bean every time, right? Again you are asking for the person bean, again the container will create a new bean, will give that bean to you. Again you are asking for the person bean, again the container will create a new bean and give that bean to you. So unlike the singleton, here there is a concept of every time the getBean methods get invoked. That means you are asking a new object to the container and the container is creating that object and giving it back to you. Okay, and that's how it is different than the singleton. If the getBean of person, if this bean would have been singleton, then in that case you should not have this many beans created. Unlike only one bean would have been created, and every time you are asking for the person, the same bean would have been returned over here whenever they're asking for a bean from the container. I hope this makes sense. And that's it for today's lesson. Thank you very much for attending. Any questions you can just quickly ask, or I'll just wrap it up.
Yes, sir. I have a question.
Yeah, Hemant, go ahead, please.
When we import the property from other projects, we mention path like a file, then it will not work on production. Suppose when we deploy, because
yes. So basically, this is thank you for bringing this in. Hemant. So here, right here, I think where I had that property source. I'll give you a shortcut. I'll tell you about a different thing in the next class, just to give you an idea so that you can just go ahead and do, some research. Here, instead of giving this path, right, you can create something called app home. Okay, you can just give your project path right here. The project is whatever. Let's say I'll copy this project and I'll put that project over here. And like that I can go. Okay, and I can give the path name right here. And in actually in production, basically Hemant, we also use something called a config server. And this is basically a separate project where we maintain our properties file and will load it in the real time. And this is what you're going to be learning in your microservices sessions. But this is something which is like, production ready code, like this much. You can go with this. Any other questions?
Actually, I deployed one file.
You don't want the file. Okay. Yeah, Mohammed. Then the question is.
Actually, I deployed one file in place of jar. Is there any difference related to any embedded Tomcat server?
Oh, you're saying you are directly deploying the jar. Then is there will be different with respect to the properties file, Hemant?
Yes.
No, I don't think there will be any difference. See, jar if you are talking about the Spring Boot application, the jar that you are creating is basically having the Tomcat inside that. So that's why that is an embedded jar, or we call it a fat jar. It's same as the var or the jar, like it's same. It's a fat jar. It's having the Tomcat inside it. So there will not be any difference coming to the property sources when it comes to Spring Boot. Hemant.
Okay. So basically, actually, I am facing that problem. When I deployed one an EC2 instance, then the project does not accept the argument from the where VI passed.
Oh, need to check that, Hemant. Like if you can get me the commands that you are running, then maybe I can figure that out. Like if I can surely figure that out. Okay.
Okay.
Just post it on my chat, or maybe post it directly on the group chat. I have around 100 plus chats, guys. If somebody have pinged me recently, really sorry about it. I'm just going one by one, but yeah, Hemant, you can just ping it directly on the group. I'll be visiting the group in my evening. I'll be just checking out over there. Okay.
Okay.
Perfect. Any other questions?
Avinash, we can read this properties file from by importing the projects also, right?
Yeah, there is something called import. We can, so basically there will be some more shortcuts that I'll be just introducing later. The property file can be loaded from a different folder, from a different project, or maybe from whatever, and also can be loaded in a different way. Like for an example, the same thing, there is a class here called application, like the environment. If you're gonna see, there is something like, you can go to the person.java, and let's say right here, and I'll be introducing you all these things. There is a class called environment, and this object will be automatically created. So environment env, this object will be created by your Spring only. You don't have to create it, so directly you can just get that object. Okay, now using this environment you can also get your properties, and here comes the property source, and you can go in depth how the things are getting imported and all these things. But yeah, here also you can directly do the same thing. Let's say plus, and I'm gonna say env dot get property. You can directly do get property or on top of this env variable, and whatever the things your add value is doing, it is going to do the same thing. You can just do name, and if you can, again you can run this, and it's okay, I think I have commented this out, but you can just taste this environment thing also. This will also able to get you the value of name, if you are going to get you the value of role or organization or experience. Everything you can just call on top of this env, and this is how the things are getting loaded to your application context and everything. That's something that we're going to be discussing during our Spring Boot time, Omka. Okay.
Okay.
Perfect. Yeah. But if anybody wants to use it, keep on using this. Just do env.getProperty and pass your, key over here, and it's gonna get you the value directly. You don't have to use add value annotation. There are a lot of things like how different things works, and also if you see your documentation, I have skipped few things that I'll be keeping it for Spring Boot. For an example, guys, there will be a scenario where you want to, let's say this name you want to randomly generate. Then there is a attribute here called random, right? Random dot value. Then this value will get you a string every time. Like it'll get you a new string every time. You don't have to hardcode the value. Like that, you can just do random dot int. It's gonna get you a number every time. But this will not work with the normal Spring application. It will work with the Spring Boot application, because the random here basically stands for a class, and that class is not going to be coming with the pom.xml. If you're gonna have, if you have only the Spring context, it will not get the random class that I'm talking about. So this random keyword here stands for a different class. Those things will only work with Spring Boot. There are a few things I'm skipping for the property thing, but we'll come back to that later. Okay, for now I'm just changing it the way it was previously. Any other questions? But yeah, don't try that, anyhow, we'll be coming back to this. There are a few things we still need to discuss. Any other questions, guys, quickly? So far all going good, guys? Perfect. So that's it. So tomorrow we will meet again, so make sure that you are doing some hands-on. I'll get you the code and everything, so let's join tomorrow. Okay, perfect. All right, thank you, guys. Bye bye.
Thank you, Bliss.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.